My name is Mary Kate Teske, and I am a multimedia artist from Billings, Montana. My mediums are photography, writing, music, and filmmaking.
Mary Kate Teske grew up 7 miles outside of a rural town in eastern Montana. Now she makes music for and about the community she grew up in.
More or less, I'm trying to perform for my fellow Montanans.
Well, I'm hightailing it to the high line. I need to drive highway 2 to clear my mind. Billings, Bozeman, Missoula are developing their
I
farmland.
found Teske on TikTok, where she has 30,000 followers and posts music from her debut album. But that's not the platform where she got her start.
Being a creator is a wild journey. I've kind of gathered a following through my photography for years, but over the last 10 years, I've actually been writing these songs for this album. It's been a long time coming for music. I showed my songs to all my friends and was like, these are what I've been working on. Do you think they're good? What do you feel about them? And a lot of my friends really encouraged me and said that they wanted to help with this album. And that's how all this came to fruition was I hired a friend of mine who is an audio engineer. I brought it to him, and then a lot of my friends in Billings are also amazing session musicians. They play jazz, country, rock. I mean, they're just like in abundance and they play all kinds of music. And so I really wanted to have all of my friends featured. I didn't want it to just be me on my acoustic guitar singing. So I hired a bunch of my friends to fill the album out, and all in all, there were like 10 musicians that were session musicians hired for the album. So it was really cool, yeah, to fill out each song and get my vision of what I imagine those songs to sound like onto the album. And I couldn't pull it off by myself. So that was where my friends came in. And it was just really cool, yeah, to slowly start seeing all the parts getting layered in together. And once the songs were completed, it was just an amazing thing for me after 10 years to just hear them, on acoustic guitar and just be like, wow, these are actual songs. For my first album, a debut album, I was like, this is exactly what I wanted. I feel like we had all the pieces and it just came together right.
Teske draws inspiration from several artists and genres, but for her debut album, she stuck to her roots.
I listen to everything, but as far as like old country that I was trying to emulate for this, I love like Towns Van Zandt, Liz Foley, Dolly Parton, just like very iconic figures within country music. I really wanted to more or less focus on the way that they tell stories. And so anybody that's a great storyteller, like I really love Tom T. Hall for that reason. And I wanted to particularly focus on my narrative of what I feel the state of Montana and then farming here in the state of Montana, those stories that were percolating within my mind because I've lived here for 30 years and I've worked on a farm and I really wanted to share my experiences in that way.
The country music that Teske emulates in her first album isn't the kind of music that you'll find at the top of the country charts, but she sees value in keeping the older styles alive.
I feel like it's just keeping tradition in a way or more or less just carrying on the torch because I still listen to it and I still have a lot of friends that listen to that style of music, more or less like the bluegrassy sound. And here in Montana, I feel like it's still pretty popular, and a lot of people turn up their nose when you talk about like CMT and, just like the poppy country. I feel like a lot of people scoff at that. And so my friends and people that I align with musically still love the old time country music sound. And so I know my audience is not lost. I know that there are still people listening to it and wanting to find artists that are continuing to keep that old sound going. So I wanted to, yeah, tell my story and just, carry the torch and look at it with fresh eyes and a fresh sound. I feel like it is the best medium for me to tell those stories, and that's why I told them in this way.
The subject matter of country songs has also changed over the years. Teske uses her life experience to return to some of the genre's classic themes.
The conversation around food production, farming, working, all those things aren't necessarily talked about. Everybody wants to talk about in country music, their truck, their girlfriend, beer, whatever, their dog, and I really want to bring it back to being in a field with your hands in the dirt and the mud, actually working and sweating and, being with the land. And that's what has influenced me the most. I have a couple songs about the river, and I love being on the land, but I also love being around the Yellowstone River and just how much that influences me. And that also is a primary element to farming because a lot of farmers and cattle ranchers rely on the river for not only irrigation, but for watering their cattle. And I think the land and the river have influenced me the most, as well as the farming community here in Montana. And I just want to speak on behalf of those people and those things because that's a huge part of who I am. And I feel like a lot of those voices get silenced here. And I really wanted to make an album to bring more attention to those people and places and things.
Because her audience often shares Teske's experiences, her songs hit home for many.
People really love Hightailing It to the Highline because, again, Hightailing It to the Highline is about a very niche spot in Montana, which is Highway 2 that runs right underneath Canada. And I've gotten to be on the Highline radios up there, and a lot of farmers, ranchers from Great Falls, Fort Peck, Havre, Chinook, just like all those small farming towns have reached out to me and said that they're really grateful for that song because, it speaks of a place that I feel, again, doesn't get a lot of attention.
While amplifying the voices of those around her, Teske and her band are bringing their music directly to the communities that inspired it.
We, as a band, were able to play for the Montana Stock Growers Association. And that was a really cool gig because it was for all of the cattle ranchers of Montana. And this was actually the 136th annual banquet. So we got to perform for their after party. And again, it was just really cool to keep the tradition alive and carry the torch a little bit more and then perform for an audience that I felt was very applicable to what the album is talking about. And yeah, it was awesome to kind of intro some of those songs. I gave a shout out before we played Hightailing It to the Highline, and a lot of farmers and ranchers raised their hands because I was like, who's from the Highline? And it was just awesome to see like people raising their hand and being like, I'm from there. And we played that song, and it was just cool to see people dancing and enjoying it. And yeah, I just more or less am trying to perform for my fellow Montanans.
In addition to performing for her local community, Teske has found success in a variety of mediums online. TikTok gives her the chance to share multiple facets of her life while spreading her music.
It's been amazing. I also told the story on how I got my 1961 Dodge Lancer. And I told that story around the time that I released the album, and it went viral with 1.4 million views. And then all my videos surrounding the album started popping off with, 20,000 views or whatever. And it was really cool to let the internet do what the internet does best and gain an audience. And it was just really cool, yeah, to see not only people loved it, but also just people that I respect in the industry loved it. Trampled by Turtles reached out and said that they really loved the album. Sarah Farrell reached out and said she loved the album. And then Jason Lee reached out and said he loved the album. So it was really cool to, yeah, just like release it. And yeah, I just feel really proud with that. It just makes me want to release another album. So that's what I've been working on lately, is trying to write some more songs.
This was my interview with multimedia artist Mary Kate Teske. She's a multimedia artist from Montana, and her self-titled album is out on streaming platforms now. You can find out more about Teske at her website, marykateteske.com. That's MaryKateTeske.com. Thanks again to Mary Kate Teske for sitting down to talk with me, and for letting me share a little bit of her song, Hightailing It to the Highline, which you've been hearing throughout this interview. Thank you for listening.